Hello RPG fans, welcome to the realm of unlimited imagination. If you're like me, you love to think about what kind of character you might play next in your favorite role-playing game. So today, we're going to talk through a build for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2024. The character presented today will be Halak Galopin, the Spiritual Slayer. As presented, this character is meant to be one of a party of 4 that I'm building called Aziran's Aspirants. This is the 3rd character in that series. If you haven't checked out the other 2, please consider to go do that, and you can look at the tank and the cleric that have already been detailed out. This also could be a standalone character. You could play this character at any group you want, but as presented today, it is part of that group. Here we see what Halak might look like eventually, with her hair crazy color, her eyes glowing, and a spirit in the background to help her out. Please remember, as we get started, hit that like button. It does help me, it helps the channel, helps more people see this content. So click that like button, subscribe to see more of this stuff in the future. And of course, leave me comments. I'm always interested to hear what people think about the build. If they've got better ideas to make it bigger, better, faster, stronger, leave those down below. And we'll try to do better and more entertaining every video that we put out. All right, so the concept. Originally, my intent was to have a ranged damage dealer who was the main single target damage dealer and also had a little bit of damage that could, what I call cleave damage. This group, they all have some kind of ability that if 2 monsters are close together, they can do some extra damage. So the Phantom Rogue has this nice ability where when they damage a target, they can damage a second target within 30 feet. So I thought that would be nice to have. But I was really struggling to build good damage where I could say, look, this is a really good single target damage dealer. And the more effort I started to put into trying to get that damage to increase, the more I felt like the character was becoming very narrow and less useful for the group. And the damage never really went that high anyway. Used to be that we had the sharpshooter feat, and we could use things that gave us higher chances to hit with ranged combat to trade off against 10 extra damage per arrow that landed. And that escalated the damage of ranged attacking quite nicely. That's gone now in 2024. And there's really not something that puts it back. For melee weapons, Great Weapon Master maintained the ability to add damage to each attack, but not so with the ranged attacks. So I decided to go the other way and say, look, okay, if I back off the damage dealing, how could I broaden this character out and make it more useful to the group? And that's where I landed on the idea of combining Ranger levels together with the Rogue levels, and that will allow us to get the Bless spell. I'll show you how we do that. But I don't like Hunter's Mark. It's pretty weak for a concentration spell. It takes your bonus action to move it once the target is dead, and we want to weaponize that bonus action and be making an attack with our bonus action. We don't want to have to use it to move around a spell just to boost our damage by a little bit. So my feeling is that Hunter's Mark is pretty weak. So we're going to take the Bless spell and use that as our concentration spell to help the whole group, as well as ourselves. So with that in mind, I took a look at the subclasses for Ranger, and there's a Fey subclass there as well that fits in excellent with the theme that we have here with Aziran, the Fey Spirit. So Halak is going to have 5 levels of Ranger. That's going to get a bunch of Ranger stuff, enough spell levels so that we can reliably be the party's Bless for the group. And it also gives us extra attack at level 5, which is pretty strong and will help us get more reliable damage. And then we'll finish it out with just all kinds of levels of Phantom Rogue and build that cleave damage for the team. This is meant to be a utility character in all areas of the game and look fabulous doing everything. So here she is at lower level when we meet her. We'll talk about the performance charts here, and the role targets I have divided up into 6 different elements. For anybody who's not familiar with that, I talk about 3 combat elements: damage, support, and control, 2 exploration elements, discovery and solving, and then the idea of social roleplay influence skills as well as the 6th element. So rating this character, damage, we're going to rate an 8. Now, I said that range damage wasn't that high, but the character can really reliably hit with that damage. So there's 2 different things to consider. One is how much damage we do, and the second is how reliably that damage lands. And in this case, we're going to rate it an 8 because we've got decent damage and pretty reliable ways to make sure that that damage happens. In terms of support, I'm going to give this character a 5. Again, we're carrying the party's bless, and there's some other things that we could do to help support the party. So we'll give that a 5. Control is a 1. We're going to have spike growth on this character, but probably rarely ever cast it with this character. So maybe we'll give it a 1. The character's not meant to tank or control the battlefield. For discovery, I'm giving this character a 9. We're going to have expertise in a bunch of skills, and this is just about as good as you can do in a character for discovery. Problem solving, the same thing. We're going to have expertise in investigation very early on, and all kinds of skills for problem solving throughout the game. And then the Fey Wanderer subclass is going to boost our ability to use the charisma-based skills for influence. So we'll take a look at that. That'll be fun. We'll rank that at 8 as well. So now we can talk a little bit about what Halak looks like, who she is. She grew up in the streets. Unlike a lot of D&D characters whose parents died and left them an orphan, her parents are still alive. They're just poor, and they really couldn't afford to send her to any school. So she fell into bad habits with the wrong crowd and has been up to mischief for a long time in her life. Her mother got inspired by religion at some point, and her mom and her go to church services. And during the day, some afternoons, they're helping tend to the wounded and sick. So that's kind of the one face of Halak is the helpful healer. And the other face is, when night falls, she takes up a club and a crossbow and she goes over to her friends who are part of a local gang of petty thieves, and she's one of their enforcers. So with that in mind, these two worlds collide, and Halak's in a church service, and they announce that they're going to be collecting a bunch of tribute to give to their benevolent patron spirit. They're going to ride a couple days out of town to this shrine. They're going to leave the tribute at the shrine. So they're talking about this at church, and Halak thinks it's a really good idea to get the gang together and just take that. I mean, if they're going to leave a bunch of stuff in the shrine in the middle of the woods, why not just wait for them to leave it and then we can take it? So they follow these folks out of town. They drop off the tribute, and after they get done with their prayers and all that and they leave, they're getting ready to steal this stuff, and unexpectedly the Fey spirit actually shows up and comes to the material realm to collect the tribute. So Halak's crew is just annihilated. They're killed on the spot. But Aziran finds Halak quite interesting, and they make an agreement, and Halak has her life spared in return for 1 full year in service to Aziran. So now we've made the connection with this Fey spirit. There's a reason for Aziran to be part of this group, or for Halak to be part of the group in service to Aziran. So Halak is a human, medium-sized, 30 feet of movement. We have to take human because we want this magic initiate cleric feat. That's how we're going to get the bless spell onto this character. And with human, you get that extra origin feat. So we're going to go ahead, take human, grab that origin feat so that we can get bless. For skills, we're going to take Arcana. This group doesn't have a dedicated person for Arcana skills, so there's reasons why we would want to have this. And again, you sometimes find magical traps and things of that nature where it's, while you're scouting, being able to roll Arcana is pretty nice. We're going to take Guidance and Spare the Dying and the Bless spell. The cantrips are optional. Guidance is nice. We already have a cleric in the group who has Guidance, but having 2 players with Guidance can be useful. So she'll take Guidance, Spare the Dying, and Bless. I value speed highly, but Halak doesn't have as much of a need to get extra speed and try to catch up with the party. We're going to have 2 levels of Rogue, so eventually with Cunning Action we can catch up to the party if we need to. And with ranged weapons that have pretty good range, she can move into combat over a series of several rounds, and it won't hurt to do it that way. The idea is to get that Bless spell off and then catch up while dealing damage. Humans can get the Alert from a background feat, and then also we can get that Magic Initiate Cleric. So that's what the plan is. So background options, Dexterity is the main concern for this character. Wisdom could be good, Constitution, or even Charisma. This character has a reason to want some Charisma. So we could do those for secondary stats. That opens up a lot of different backgrounds for us. But we really want the Alert origin feat. So if we really want alert, we're going to go to criminal. It gives Dex, Con, Int, and the alert feat. And this is just a high density background. You get sleight of hand and stealth as skills. You get thieves' tools as your tool proficiency, and the alert feat. So I think, honestly, there's probably going to be a lot of criminals in D&D 2024 if people have to follow these background options. This is a background that I think can be picked pretty often for a lot of different characters with a lot of really good benefit to the character. So we're surely going to take it here. We're going to start out with Ranger. I did take a look at Rogue at level 1. We would end up getting one more skill in total on the character, but we lose a couple hit points. And honestly, I like the strength save from Ranger better than the intelligence save that we get from Rogue. So I think Ranger for first level. We're going to grab Investigation, Perception, Athletics. Favorite enemy gives us Hunter's Mark a couple times per day. If we don't have a Bless spell to cast, then we can use Hunter's Mark. Or if the spell, let's say we don't think the combat's going to last long enough for a spell to be worth casting Bless, we get a couple free Hunter's Marks that we could use. Weapon Masteries, we're going to take a Heavy Crossbow and a Short Sword at level 1. We're going to get 2 more Weapon Masteries, and I believe that Weapon Masteries do stack. If you don't believe that, then let me know why you would think that. So when we take Ranger levels, we get 2 Weapon Masteries. Later, when we take Rogue levels, we get 2 Masteries. I believe that gives us a total of 4 Weapon Masteries. But if you guys think that this Weapon Mastery feat doesn't stack, and that that's the same feature, and you only get 2 weapons, that's fine too. I mean, if we pick the right 2 weapons, it won't matter that much. All right, for spells, we're going to take Goodberry and Fog Cloud. Fog Cloud could be a good battlefield control spell if we needed it. We might want to cast Goodberries at level 1. We do get 1 free casting of Bless with that Magic Initiate Cleric feat. So if we did cast Goodberry, that would use 1 of our first level spell slots. We would still have the free Bless and 1 other spell slot for Bless. So we could do Bless in 2 different combats during the day and also do Hunter's Mark in 2 other combats. So I think at low levels, we probably use the Goodberries. For ability scores in this character, Strength and Intelligence, we're going to leave at 8 with the point buy method, put 0 points in them. Dexterity, we're going to max out at 17 by using 9 points and getting the +2 from our background. Constitution, we're going to put 5 points there and +1 from the background to get a total of 14. Wisdom, we're going to put at a 15 using 9 points. And then Charisma, we're going to have it at 12 and put 4 points there. It would be wonderful to be able to put a point in Wisdom and round that up to 16. The issue is with the criminal background, Wisdom is not one of the ability scores that we could add that bonus to. So we have to take it in Constitution and look for something later to increase our Wisdom. That's okay. We'll get there. If you don't like having odd-numbered scores like that, you could also take 2 of those points and bring your intelligence up to 10. That would also be a legitimate way to do these ability scores. For skill inventory, we've got Stealth, Sleight of Hand, and Thieves' Tool all at +5 rolls. We've got Perception at +4, Investigation, Athletics, Arcana at +1. And those skills I put on here because remember, when we get our Rogue levels, we're going to be able to boost up a lot of these things and get more skills already at 2nd level. At 1st level, we're going to take 150 gold from Ranger and 50 gold from the criminal background. We're going to get studded leather armor, a heavy crossbow, and some ammunition. We're going to get a burglar's pack, thieves' tools. Don't forget to get a holy symbol. With that cleric initiate background, we're going to need that holy symbol to be able to cast the bless spell. Component pouch, again, to cast your spells. It's nice to have a component pouch to say, okay, I don't have to worry about that stuff. And then I think Halak likes to dress nice. So grab a couple sets of fancy clothes. I spent 8 gold pieces on clothes. Talk with your GM. I mean, it's up to you if you want to do something like that. But I think for role-playing for this character, she likes to dress up and be pretty. That's part of her personality. We'll see more of that later on. With those starting purchases, that leaves 21 gold to spend however you like, or save those toward Goggles of Night. Remember that this character does have an 8 strength that only gives us 120 pounds of carrying capacity. I don't see the encumbered rules anymore, so I think we actually can carry 120 pounds before we drop our movement speed to 5 feet per round. But if your GM pays attention to stuff like that, be careful, because this character can quite easily end up overloaded. At level 2, we're going to lean more into this rogue description of our class. Multi-class into rogue, we're going to take the deception skill as the extra skill that we get with our first level of rogue. For expertise, we're going to put the expertise in investigation and perception. Again, we want to be the best scout that we can be, investigating things and perceiving things. Those roles let you know where stuff is and what's coming, and that's, I think, the key to being a scout, is perception and investigation and stealth. We'll get stealth expertise here shortly. That also brings sneak attack online, 1d6 of damage. Sneak damage triggers in the case where you have advantage on your roll, or where you have an ally within 5 feet of the enemy. We should be able to trigger sneak attack very reliably. The other 3 characters in our group don't have a problem getting in melee range of the enemies, so we should always have an ally within melee range. Get the Thieves' Cant language, and with the weapon masteries, again, we could take 2 more weapon masteries, I think. So we take hand crossbow and scimitar here. Out of combat. So at level 2, let's think about how this character is going to play in and out of combat. So we gave this character fantastic out of combat ratings, right? We've got everything. Investigate, hide, sneak, scouting, perceiving. Persuasion and deception are already skilled to help manage when Halak might get caught. Arcana ensures that Halak can find magical traps as well as mundane ones. Guidance is there to help yourself or other characters. The way that guidance is worded, it's you affect a creature that could be yourself or another creature, and it's concentration until a skill check is rolled. So you can actually put guidance on yourself before you roll your stealth check, and then when you roll stealth, you'll get an extra d4 to your stealth roll. It's interesting. I like having guidance on the character who's actually doing the scouting, because if you're away from the group and you need to investigate something, you could potentially use guidance. Guidance does have a verbal component, so you can't use guidance if you need to be silent, but there are circumstances where you might be able to guidance yourself and get an extra d4. It's a nice little gimmick. It's not a reason to build the class this way, but since we have it, it's something to be aware of. Thieves' Tools checks don't count as a skill in the same way that guidance does, but when we look at the rules now, it clarifies that if you have a skill and a tool proficiency that both apply, you have advantage. My understanding of this, some GMs actually use sleight of hand for the Thieves' Tool check already. So sleight of hand feels to me like most often it's going to apply with Thieves' Tools. So you could make a check to unlock a door or disable a trap. Thieves' Tools apply and you're proficient. Sleight of hand applies and you're proficient, which would give you advantage on the roll. And you should also be able to use guidance, because the sleight of hand roll is in fact a skill roll that you could add a d4 on guidance. So assuming that all checks out and you agree with the way that I've read this and interpreted it, then you cast guidance on yourself before you do the tool check. It is a concentration spell, so it's up and running while you do the check. You roll your sleight of hand and you get advantage on that roll and an extra d4. So already at level 2, we should have a pretty high reliability for being able to get these Thieves' Tools to work. And remember that humans also have heroic inspiration after a long rest. So in the case that you do fail some important Thieves' Tool check, you do have a reroll where you can reroll it. All right, so for combat, this character is really straightforward in combat. We want to use Bless. Now, we want to use Bless so badly that we want to go first all the time, every time, and you're going to need your agreement from your party and permission from them to do that, right? If they watch this guide, if they understand that you need to go first in combat, that's good. If they don't understand it, send them over here to take a look. On your first turn, because of alert feat, you're getting a bonus to your initiative already. This character has high dexterity, so already at level 2, they have a +5 to their initiative roll. When you go first with this character, you probably can't get sneak attack. You might not have advantage. Your other characters in your party won't be within 5 feet of the enemies, most likely. So the first round, if you get a high initiative and you want to attack, isn't really helping you that much anyway, because you really want that extra d6 of damage. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go first no matter what. The alert feat says you can trade initiative with somebody else in your party if they're willing. Whoever rolls the highest initiative out of your group, if it's you, great. If it's not you, trade with the highest initiative, and then while your group is still together, cast that Bless spell, get Bless on everybody, and then the group can go do what they're going to do, and by the time you get your turn on your second round, you'll be able to trigger that sneak attack no problem. So you're going to make very effective use of your first turn of combat by going first, casting Bless. At low levels, we're only going to get 3 allies, so you would do yourself, the cleric and the warlock, and the monk, the barbarian monk you would skip. Tenement's going to have ways that they can get advantage on their own with the barbarian reckless attacks, so they need the Bless less than the other people in the group. If you're casting a Bless, always cast it on yourself. It gives you plus D4 to saving throws, and if you're forced to make a concentration check, the person who casts the Bless really wants to have the Bless on to ensure that the Bless stays up. All right, and then after that, your combat rounds are simple. You move and you attack. You try to target something in melee with an ally for that extra D6, or you find some way to get advantage in order to get that extra D6. You can also go all the way into hand-to-hand combat, and if you have the short sword Vex weapon mastery, you can hit them with your main hand with a Vex weapon, and if you hit on that roll, it gives you advantage on your next roll. You use your bonus action with 2 weapon fighting to trigger that attack on your offhand, or if you want to use a scimitar for a nick and trigger it within the same round without using your bonus action. Those are all options, but if you hit with the Vex weapon, your next attack has advantage, and that's a way that you can trigger sneak attack, even if you couldn't otherwise. So, in the case where there's an enemy that you really want to do damage to that's not engaged with one of your allies, you can walk up to it, strike with Vex. If that hits, your next attack has advantage. Attack with advantage, get your sneak attack off. Hunter's Mark is pretty much only for use in a combat where you're not going to bless your allies. If there's a single target in the combat and it doesn't look like a long combat with a boss mob or something like that, you can use Hunter's Mark and just try to take it down quicker. If you do it that way against a single target, you'll have sneak attack damage and also the Hunter's Mark damage. You'll be doing D8 plus 2D6, or with a heavy crossbow, D10 plus 2D6. So quite a lot of damage in one hit. Halak by level 2 is just about having a ton of skills. In combat, the routine is going to be really simple. Bless 3 people. You can do that up to 3 times a day, twice a day if you already cast good berries, and then just target an enemy. You have a D10 plus D6 plus 3. That's 12 average damage per hit at level 2, with an 86% chance to hit if you include Bless. Halak's turn should be simple but effective, right? We just move and we put 12 damage into something. At level 3, we're going to go back to Ranger. That's going to give us a fighting style. We're going to take that archery fighting style and have +2 to all of our ranged attacks. That's going to skew the statistics even further in our favor for landing those hits. Deft Explorer gives us another expertise, and we're going to go ahead and take that expertise in stealth. So now by level 3, we've got stealth, perception, and investigation, all with expertise. All right. Level 4, we're going to take another level of Ranger, and this is where we're going to pick up the Fey Wanderer subclass. Aziran, the Fey Spirit, they knew this was going to happen, and they were going to get a devoted Wanderer follower, so, you know, that's just how things were going to work out. We can grab the jump spell here. I don't know that we'll ever need to cast it, but there may be a circumstance where we want to be able to retreat more quickly or something like that, or maybe there's a map with a ton of difficult terrain that we need to move around in and we could just jump over it. So situationally, we could take the jump spell. If we look at the Fey Wanderer spell list, level 3 we get access to Charmed Person, level 5 we get access to Misty Step, level 9 we get access to Summon Fey, 13 Dimension Door, 17 Mislead. We're only intending to take 5 levels in the Fey Wanderer class, so we'll get to Misty Step, that's as far as we'll get, but then we do have a teleport option on this character just in case it's needed. We pick up the Dreadful Strikes ability. You augment weapon strikes with mind-scarring magic drawn from the murky hollows of the Feywild. When you hit a creature with your weapon, you deal extra d4 psychic damage. A creature can only take the extra damage once per turn. Increases to 1d6 when you reach Ranger level 11. This is really not great. It's an extra 2.5 damage against a target, but if you target multiple enemies, you can get the d4 against each enemy once per turn. This group is going to be able to focus on one target like you want to in Dungeons & Dragons. You focus fire one target till it's gone. But they also have a gimmick where attacking 2 or 3 targets also is completely within the realm of what they want to do as a group. These cleave abilities are meant to take effect. So when we hit a creature with a weapon, we can deal a d4. And if we hit the creature next to it with a separate attack, we can also do the d4. Eventually, if we hit a third creature with a third attack, we can do a d4. If we get to attack outside of our turn, we also get the d4. So each creature can only take it once per turn, but we can get it across many creatures. So that helps us with this idea that we have for always having something to do with the cleave damage. But cleaving for 1d4, it's never going to impress anyone. But we're going to take it since it's there. The Fey Wanderer fits with the group. It's fun, it's funny, and here we're going to get the thing that I like the best, right? We get a skill with Fey Wanderer, and we're going to take Persuasion. So now we've got Persuasion and Deception that are trained. You get a Feywild gift, and there's a list of 6 different gifts. The last one, number 6, says your skin and hair change color each day at dawn. I think that's hilarious. Some of these other things are much less obtrusive, but if Halak is already kind of a little bit vain about her appearance, this could be so much fun because she can wake up on any given day with any combination of hair and skin color, and you need a lot of outfits for that. And my wife assures me that shopping for this many outfits would be a whole lot of fun in role-playing. She likes shopping in real life. She likes shopping in role-playing. So every time you're in town, your goal is to get more outfits that could match your random color generation. It could be a fun role-playing thing. If you want something different off the list, little antlers on your head or shadows that dance when nobody's looking. It's trinket effects, but I like this idea of constantly changing skin and hair color. Otherworldly Glamour, we also get at level 3 with our subclass. Whenever you make a charisma check, you gain a bonus equal to your wisdom modifier. We have a +2 to our wisdom modifier. We're picking up skills in persuasion and deception. So now we're trained in those skills, and also we get an extra +2 on top of that. And later when we take rogue levels, we'll get expertise in both of those, and we'll end up with a bunch of extra pluses and expertise in those skills. and we'll be pretty well able to persuade or deceive our way out of the situation if we get caught. It's not what I intended out of this character, but since it comes with the subclass, I'm going to lean into it. At Ranger level 5, we can pick up Cure Wounds. I don't think we will have needed it to this point. I don't think we'll need it after this point, especially if we've got a package of good berries giving us 10 hit points to dole out. There's not many circumstances where we would want to use a whole spell if we could just use one good berry and put a person back at 1 hit point. But we'll have it just in case. As a feat at level 4, Ranger gets a level feat. At level 4, Ranger gets a feat. We're going to take Crossbow Expert. Once we get extra attack, we're not going to be able to use our crossbows unless we take this. We're also going to get a +1 to our dex here, which will take us to 18 dexterity, +4 on that modifier. We ignore the loading property of crossbows so we can shoot as many times as we want. We don't have disadvantage if we're within 5 feet of an enemy. That's actually important. We really want that. There's a lot of ways to prone enemies in this 2024 rule set, and there's a lot of times where if one of your characters can grapple an enemy and put them prone, they have 0 movement. They can't stand up from prone if they have 0 movement. At least that's my understanding of it. You have to use half your movement to stand up. So if you have no movement at all, you're stuck on the ground, prone and grappled. You don't want your ranged character to be stuck in the background, not being able to do anything. So in this case, we can walk up with our hand crossbows, shoot within 5 feet, and not have the disadvantage. And in fact, we will get advantage because the way prone is worded, attacks within 5 feet get advantage. It doesn't say they have to be melee attacks. Gunner could be another feat that will allow use of a musket with a d12 damage, but the pistols and gunners have short range. Pistols don't have the light property, so we can't weaponize our bonus action that way. With the Crossbow Expert feat, we can dual wield hand crossbows now, and we can add the stat bonus to the damage from the extra attack. So with the Crossbow Expert feat, we can use 2 hand crossbows, attack with the crossbow with our main hand, attack with the hand crossbow with our offhand. We can load them any number of times, and we get our dexterity bonus to all the damage. So I think overall that's more powerful. Guns make noise, and I think a GM who plays it that way, where the guns make noise, oftentimes having guns, even though they do damage, can be a really big detriment to the group. All right, level 6 Ranger. Here we see that Halak woke up for the day with white hair and blue skin, so she's got to make the best of that for the day, so that's fun. Level 6 Ranger 5, that gets us extra attack and second level spells. We're going to get rid of Fog Cloud here and grab Spike Growth. We're also going to grab Lesser Restoration and put it on the list. We're not really going to cast these spells, we just want those second level spell slots so that we can upcast Bless at level 2. That gets 4 targets, and we can bless all 4 characters in the Aziran Aspirant group. Level 6 in action, we already talked about the scouting. That really hasn't changed significantly in these last levels. For preparation, we can cast Longstrider. Perhaps we want to put that on the Barbarian. Maybe. Mostly we probably just want to save our spell slots, but it's there if we want to. The first turn, again, we're going to use the Alert feat, get the highest initiative, upcast Bless, and position ourselves, and then let the rest of the group go. If we're wielding the hand crossbows at this level, we have extra attack, so we can do attack and then extra attack, and then with our bonus attack, we can use the other hand crossbow, and we get 3 attacks that all take advantage of the dexterity modifier and bonus. With the heavy crossbow, we would just get 2 attacks and a move. If there's a reason we would use our bonus action for something else, the heavy crossbow is an option. We can use a heal spell or good berry in combat if we need to. We could switch to like a short sword and a hand crossbow and attack with 5 feet to avoid disadvantage on prone targets. Hand crossbows are preferred. That's actually what we want to be doing. It's slightly higher damage using 2 hand crossbows, but there will be times where perhaps we do the bless and move on our first turn, and then on the second turn, we can't close down to hand crossbow range because they are pretty short. They have a 30-foot effective range. You don't want to be shooting them at long range, so if you can't get within 30 feet, you have to stick with the heavy crossbow. Misty Step will be available. We really don't want to burn a second level spell slot to have to use that, but it's there if we really need it. Basically, we're using the second level spell slot for a bless. Then we'll use the first level spell slots for blesses. We'll save that second level spell slot for Misty Step if we need it sometime during the day. And if we don't need it, right before we go to bed, we can cast Good Berries using that second level spell slot. And Good Berries last for 24 hours, so they'll last through the next entire adventuring day. Should be fine. All right, by level 6, we can move 2 targets together quite frequently. If we can't get 2 targets within 5 feet of each other in another way, remember that on our turn, Halak can use the heavy crossbow and push an enemy 10 feet. So we could position ourselves in one way, push them 10 feet at an angle, take our movement 30 feet over here, hit a different enemy from another angle, push it with the heavy crossbow, and in that way, push enemies together for the rest of our group. So the push feature from heavy crossbow could figure heavily into how you want to take your turn. And remember, team synergy with this group is going to be really good. If spike growth was the right play, the heavy crossbow can push things around in the spike growth for extra damage. And remember that dreadful strikes can affect multiple enemies, but only once each turn. This team doesn't mind if you're doing 2 or even 3 enemies at a time, so spread out your damage with those hand crossbows and take advantage of your dreadful strikes. Calculations for level 6, we've got a +2 to hit, remember, from that fighting style that we get. With Bless, that gives us a 95% chance even without advantage, assuming that we have a +1 weapon, so our hits are going to be pretty reliable. The heavy crossbow with 2 attacks per round, a D10 damage base, plus that D4 of damage, +4. We could get that twice. We could trigger sneak attack once if we hit, and that's 25.7 damage. It's okay for a level 6 character. It's decent damage, nothing to write home about. It's not gonna, let's say, beat an optimized damage build. But remember, we're building this character for a lot of different skills and abilities, not necessarily only for combat damage. If we look at the hand crossbows, 3 attacks for a D6 base damage plus D4 if we get 3 different targets, and they all get the dexterity bonus and then the 1d6 sneak attack on one of the targets. So that would be 31.3 damage across 3 targets. Even if we didn't trigger that third D4, even if we're only attacking 2 targets, it would still be, 29 damage. It would still be higher than the heavy crossbows. Today, Halak woke up with pink hair and purple skin. We got to make the best of that for the day. The party's meant to take advantage of spike growth in a way that's fair and situational. When it works, it's great. When it doesn't, the party does normal combat tactics. There's a tactic, of course, where we put out spike growth and characters in the party grapple enemies and drag them all around in the spike growth. I don't like that tactic. The table where I play, that's not considered fair gameplay. But using a push effect from a heavy crossbow and just pushing them 10 feet through the spike growth, that is considered to be fair gameplay and working within the rules as intended. So if the cleric of the group uses spike growth, we can use that heavy crossbow to our advantage. Halak will have spike growth in the kit, but again, we're only going to use that when the whole party's running away, and the right thing to do is just drop spike growth behind it to try to make the enemy struggle to keep up or die if they cross the spike growth. So there are situations where Halak may want to cast it, but typically we would only be taking advantage of that when the cleric of the group uses the spike growth. Taking hits. If Halak does end up taking hits, so the other 3 characters are going to be playing forward and Halak's going to be moving up and doing ranged attacks as they get in range. If a monster comes out from the back and ambushes Halak and pins her down in melee, don't try to run. If it's really dangerous, the cleric can come back to help you. There's ranged healing spells. The best move that Halak can make, you don't take disadvantage for being within 5 foot of an enemy. So if they pin you down in melee, you just take your hand crossbows, point them directly at their skull, and pull the trigger. No reason to disengage and run away and take a very difficult turn. Just attack, bonus action attack. The dead condition, the unconscious condition, both of those things prevent attacks of opportunity. So that's the way to get away from a melee attacker. Just put them down. Items. So going through this, let's say, first tier, the items that we want to think about are for skills more than anything. The headband of intellect gives the character 19 intelligence. So you put it on, you attune to it, and your intelligence just becomes 19. That's why we didn't put any points in intelligence. We used it as a dump stat. We leave it at 8. If we get the headband of intellect, that goes to 19. Now when we're making those arcana checks or investigation rolls, we're making them with the +4 from the 19 intelligence that we get from this headband. That's a 5-point jump from -1 to +4 for arcana and investigation checks, or any knowledge skills that we may not be trained in. This is, for this particular character, could be interesting to bend those skills in the upward direction. A luck stone, +1 to all saves and skill checks. Luck stone for this character is just one of the best early game items you can get. Some GMs make it very hard to find a luck stone, but according to the rules, they're not that rare, so you should be able to get a luck stone. +1 to all your saves and skill checks is really good. Bracers of Archery is another thing that it's an uncommon item. You should be able to pick it up. It's +2 damage to your ranged attacks. And if you attune those 3 things, the headband of intellect, luck stone, and bracers of archery, I feel like all 3 of those things work together in a way where it's not trying to overpower the character in one element of the game. Your ranged attacks get a little bit better, your skill checks get a little bit better, and that headband of intellect really puts you over the top with investigation and arcana. Consumables, your favorite consumable is going to be a potion of speed, haste for 1 minute. They are expensive in the game. I've seen the suggested price of 400 gold pieces. It's, I believe, very rare is the category for potion of speed. It gives you haste for 1 minute. We'll read the 2024 rules for haste. Choose a willing creature you can see within range. Of course, if you're drinking a potion, you don't get to choose. It's just the person that drinks the potion. Until the spell ends, the target's speed is doubled. Check, we like that. +2 to armor class. Check, we like that. Advantage on dexterity saving throws. That's going to be great for this character who already has good dexterity saving throws, making it even better. And it gains an additional action on each turn. The action can only be attack, dash, disengage, hide, or utilize. Please note, as written right here, it says the action to take the attack action, but specifically only one attack. It's important because there are abilities and things that trigger in the game when you take the attack action. This extra attack is an attack action. That action can be used to attack, okay? The way I read this, and by definition, this is an attack action. That's important because Halak could then use a potion of haste, move, and then with that hasted action, we can declare that attack action. That will allow us to use our 2-weapon fighting with the hand crossbow bonus attack and get that as well on our turn. And then with our normal action, we're going to ready an action. Give your ready to action a super easy trigger. Just look at the initiative tracker. Let's say Aklia is next. As soon as Aklia takes any actions, I'm going to shoot this enemy again. Because that ready to action is going to go off on somebody else's turn. It's a new turn, so Dreadful Strikes applies again, Sneak Attack applies again, and an extra D4 and an extra D6 is 6 extra damage. So spending 400 gold pieces to increase your damage by 6 is thumbs down at level 6, right? because we could have instead just made 2 attacks during the round with attack and extra attack. Okay, so the haste attack plus the off-turn attack is the same as the 2 attacks we could have taken anyway, and we get 6 extra damage. Getting 6 extra damage isn't worth a potion of haste, okay? But remember, as your sneak dice go up, we're going to take rogue levels from now on, so as those sneak dice get better and better and better, being able to take this ready to action on somebody else's turn when that's 3d6 or 5d6 sneak damage, now it's not 6 extra damage anymore, it's 20 extra damage. So this is an item that you might want to have one in your backpack and use it in a boss fight. That hasted action could be used to move around the battlefield, to take that extra attack, to do a lot of things. But yeah, it should be used in circumstances where spending 400 gold pieces is worth it. And then, of course, the higher this character goes in levels, the better and better and better this haste potion gets as that sneak attack gets better and better. Roleplay at level 6. Halak is happy to help the party. Remember, she's got this background. She's a criminal, but she's also a cleric, right? She's also a very helpful initiate of the cleric group. And so she's always happy to help the party. She's her scouting is always going to be, let me find out what's ahead. Let me see if there's any traps here. Let me make it safe for you guys. I see her as like a really, wanting to be a helpful character. It's not necessarily that she wants to leave her criminal past behind, but she wants to use that criminal past to help this new group because they all have a shared goal for the greater glory of the Fae Spirit Aziran, right? And, doing all that stuff is, it's even easier when you look fabulous. So continue to waste the party's gold at this point on fancy clothes, or maybe you want a tiara with some diamonds in it, so you look even better. But remember, it has to match almost any hair or skin color. Diamonds probably work the best for that. For a person that wants to roleplay that, I think this could be very fun. All right. Got to look good while you're sneaking around. In combat, Halak always wants to be first, right? So in combat, Halak mutters this blessing, blesses the group, gets them all ready to go, and then they just run off, leaving her behind. And she'll just stalk forward, I say here with playful resolution. She's serious about combat. She wants to get things done. She's, a sniper of sorts. She's going to switch between the heavy crossbows at long range or twin hand crossbows up closer. Once combat is engaged, this character will end up, let's say, within 10 to 15 feet of the enemies. She shouldn't stay way back. She should go up with the group, not be afraid to be in with the group. Hand crossbows have a 30-foot range, but it's fine to walk up within 10 feet. Again, if you walk up within 10 feet of an enemy and those enemies get taken out, you want to be within striking distance of the next set of enemies behind them. So don't be afraid to use that full movement every turn. Get 30 feet closer to the combat. Get right up on them with the hand crossbows. She reloads these crossbows with mystical precision, sends the might of the Fae downrange with a very practiced flare. Her happy-go-lucky demeanor could occasionally be interrupted. She hasn't admitted it to anyone, but sometimes when she gets the kill on an enemy, she could swear that she sees the spirit leaving their body. That could be pretty disconcerting in the middle of combat if you shoot somebody and their spirit stands up out of their corpse and stares you down for the rest of the combat. So I think it might be fun to start role-playing this character already, where the spirits are starting to influence her, maybe surprise her, shock her a little bit. And when the rest of the group asks what's going on, maybe she'll tell them what she sees, or maybe it'll be a secret and a mystery until later when it comes online for real. Should we take more Ranger? It's tempting. Ranger looks pretty good now. But a lot of what Ranger does, more you get higher in level, they keep talking about using Hunter's Mark. And we don't plan to use Hunter's Mark with this character. So a lot of what comes online and gets better about Ranger is stuff that we're not really going to be taking advantage of anyway. So I think we leave Ranger at 5 We never look back. We got the extra attack. That's what we were here for. We got spell slots. We're done. We're done for the rest of this character's career. We cast Goodberry once a day, and then from then on we just use Bless, the very occasional Misty Step when we really need it, and just use our turns for as much damage as we can put down. Rogue for the next 14 levels. Let's go. At level 7, we're going to get Rogue 2. Cunning Action is so good. Cunning Action, if there was a feat for Cunning Action and you didn't even get an ability score for it, I would take it on almost every character. Having Dash or Hide as a bonus action is so good. It's so good. And in this build, I was trying to figure out a good way to get Cunning Action a lot earlier. But I think building up to those second level spell slots and getting extra attack really trumps the Cunning Action. But now that we're level 7, we go back to Rogue, we get this. So now, if we're at far range, we've got the heavy crossbow out. We move 30 feet. We take 2 shots with the heavy crossbow and put it away. And then we use our bonus action to dash, move in another 30 feet. And then on the next turn, we move in and start pulling out our hand crossbows and using them. So I think it's once we have Cunning Action, we will only be using the heavy crossbows at range, I think, for 1 round, and or unless we want the push feature, of course. If we're using the push feature on the heavy crossbows, then we can hide as a bonus action in the middle of combat and then get advantage on our next roll. There's so much good stuff that you can do with Cunning Action. It's so good. So good. Dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. And now if we want to stay in melee, if we get pinned down in melee, we choose to stay. Or we could just disengage and walk away. We could do that too. So good. At level 8, we're Rogue 3. That lets us take the Phantom subclass for Rogues. Steady Aim also comes online. We're not going to use that very often. We should often be able to have advantage without using it. We're going to have high hit chance. So I don't see that Steady Aim is going to be something this character is going to use very often. But in that one combat where you really need to establish your Vex and you haven't been able to hit with a hand crossbow yet, hand crossbows chain Vex. So if you hit with a hand crossbow, the next attack, you get advantage with that. If you hit with that, you get advantage on your next attack. If you hit with that, it carries over till the next turn. You have advantage on your next attack until the end of your next turn. So you start your next turn with the Vex up and running. So there's with that Vex chain, I really don't see many scenarios where you would choose to use Steady Aim. You would just choose to hit him with Vex. That would enable your advantage on your next attack, and that triggers Sneak. We get the second D6 of sneak damage, and the feature that we get from Phantom is Whispers of the Dead. It gives you this tool proficiency where once per day you pick a tool that you're not proficient in, and a spirit lets you know how to be proficient or helps you use that tool. That could be situationally useful. I don't know. Maybe you have to build fortifications for a town to help protect them against an impending attack, and it seems good to have stonemason's tools for the day, or carpenter's tools or something like that. So it's a wild card tool proficiency, but it's pretty situational. It's okay. But where you really need a tool, remember that you actually have to, in fact, have the toolkit. So just having proficiency with carpenter's tools doesn't help unless you actually have bought the carpenter's tools and have them on your character. So by level 8, you're going to have a big collection of different tools, and you're going to put them on somebody else because with your 8 strength, you can't carry them. Wails from the Grave. This is the reason we're taking this Phantom feature. As you nudge someone closer to the grave, channel the power of death to harm someone else as well. Immediately after we deal sneak attack damage to a creature on our turn, we can target a second creature that we can see within 30 feet of the first, roll half the number of sneak attack dice, and the second creature takes necrotic damage equal to the roll. wails of the dead sound around them for a moment. You can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So here at level 8, that's 3 times. At level 9, it'll go up to 4 times a day that we can use it. And we regain all expended uses when we finish a long rest. So it's a cleave effect that at this level we can only use 4 times per day, and it can only be used on our turn. So if you're using the haste idea and you want to use a hasted action, use a readied action, take your readied action, you can't use the Wails from the Grave cleave when it's not your turn. Some limitations, but again, this is not meant to be the reason and purpose that we're here for the class, but because we can take this class and it fits with the theme and it allows this cool cleave effect that goes along with the group, we can take it, and when it applies, it's pretty nice. With 3d6 sneak damage, we hit a main target with 3d6 sneak, and we just get to roll 2d6 and do 7 damage to another target within 30 feet. It's free damage 4 times a day, 28 extra damage per day. We'll take it. At level 9, we're Rogue 4, and we get another feat. Here we see Halak's woken up for the day with pretty normal looking skin, but she's got blue hair. All right. She's got an outfit on. She's wearing red today. Doesn't really match her. Maybe it's more contrasting with her hair color, but looks like she's having fun with it anyway. We see some of these spirits in the background now. She's starting to get invaded by these ghosts, whether she likes it or not. Rogue 4, we get a feat. We're going to take Mage Slayer. That's going to give us another +1 to Dex. Takes our Dex to 19, so we don't get, maxed out Dex. But I think we're going to max out our Dex by taking feats like this. So here we go. Let's take Dex. Gives disadvantage to concentration checks when we hit a target. And Guarded Mind says when we fail an Int Whiz or a Charisma save, we can succeed instead. And it resets on a short rest. I thought this skill was super powerful, and then I read that it resets on a short rest, and to me that takes it over the top. That save is ridiculous. Important battle, somebody tries to charm you, you fail your save, you get to roll your save first and find out if you make it. It's only if you fail the save, then you can go, you know what, I have this legendary resistance for mental stats, so I'm not charmed. We're just going to skip that part for now, move right along. And it resets on your next short rest. It's too good to pass up. So we're definitely going to take it. All right. At level 10, we're going to be Rogue 5. So now we're 5 Ranger, 5 Rogue. Okay, but now we've got 3d6 sneak, and we cleave for 2d6. We get Cunning Strikes, which allows us to do poison, withdraw, or trip by trading in some sneak damage. And we can, if we choose to use the poison feature, that gives the target poisoned. It's very nice to prevent healing. So now we've got something in the group where if we were fighting a monster that heals, we can trigger that, prevent their healing. We do have to have a poisoner's kit to use that, so grab a poisoner's kit. Uncanny Dodge comes online here, and once per turn we can take half damage from a target that we see that hits us with an attack roll. So it doesn't do any good against fireball or just elemental damage, breath weapons, things like that. But if it requires an attack roll, we can cut the damage in half once per round. That's pretty good. Gives us a little more confidence when we need to go into melee range. Level 11 gives us Rogue 6. Here we can see we've got green skin and red hair, so interesting look there. Rogue 6 gives Expertise, and here is where we're going to be able to take expertise in both persuasion and deception. So now, we already had pretty decent rolls here. Now we're going to have expertise. And remember that we're adding our wisdom modifier also to these rolls. So, pretty good. We should be able to persuade or deceive our ways out of most things. Up to this point, our warlock, by this point, she will have 20 charisma and we'll have been making all of these rolls. But once we get expertise, we're going to pass up the paladin's abilities and have a better roll than the paladin or the warlock will. At level 12, we're going to pick up Rogue 7. That's 46 of sneak damage. Evasion comes online. If we succeed at a dex save, there's no damage at all. Reliable Talent comes online now, and for trained skills, we can't roll less than a 10. That's, I think, known to be one of the more overpowered features that rogues have. If you take a look at your stealth check at this level, again, remembering that you could use guidance if you wanted to, you would have a +4 at this point to your proficiency. So that would be 12 and a D4. You would roll, I think, 22 minimum on your stealth checks at this level. So reliable talent is really strong. It's not, let's say, the reason to build the character the way we're building it, but once we get it, it really makes all of our perception, stealth, investigation, arcana, all those rolls are guaranteed to be really good. At level 13, we're going to pick up Rogue 8. We get another feat. We're going to take a Piercer feat for +1 dexterity. That'll cap our dexterity at 20 and giving us a +5 on our modifier there. The Piercer feat lets us re-roll 1 damage die per turn with our piercing weapon. And of course, crossbows do all kinds of piercing. And it does give us 1 extra damage die on a critical hit, which is okay. It's not great, but it's a way to finish out our dexterity with meaningful addition to our damage sometimes. At level 14, we're going to be Rogue 9. That's going to give us 5d6 sneak damage. And it also gives us tokens of the departed. Now that cleave ability that we're using with the Phantom subclass is fully enabled. When a life ends in our presence, we're able to snatch a token from the departing soul. A sliver of its life essence takes physical form. As a reaction when a creature that we can see within 30 feet dies, we can use a free hand and get a trinket. It's called a soul trinket. You or the DM or whoever can determine the form. There's a table in the player's handbook now that gives a D100 different trinkets. If you wanted to generate random trinkets, you could do it off of there. Get a bag full of teeth or a necklace with a dragon talon or whatever it might look like. You can have a maximum number of soul trinkets equal to your proficiency bonus, and you can't create one if you're at your max. While the soul trinket is on your person at all, you have advantage on death saving throws and constitution saving throws. So now we have advantage on our concentration checks. One of the reasons why we haven't been digging around trying to find ways to get advantage on concentration checks is that we're going to get it eventually anyway. So here we get it. When you deal sneak attack on your damage on your turn, we can destroy a trinket and immediately use Wails from the Grave without expending use of that feature. You can also, as an action, destroy one of the soul trinkets, no matter where it's located. When you do, ask the spirit who is associated with that trinket one question. The spirit appears, answer the question in a language that it knew in its life. It's under no obligation to be truthful. It answers concisely, eagerly to be free, and the spirit knows only what it knew in life, which is determined by the DM. So if you're killing bugbears and you use this trinket, it's going to come back and it's going to talk to you in whatever language it understands, and it's only going to have the knowledge that it knew. It can be situationally useful. It's a fun little ribbon effect. Let's talk about this sneak attack damage. So Wails from the Grave allowed us to use damage. When we did our sneak damage, we could do more damage to something else. With 5d6 sneak damage, once we do that to one target, we can do 3d6 damage to a different target within 30 feet. The idea here is we can now use this cleave effect every turn that it applies. We're going to get another monster kill sometime within the next couple turns. This character intends to be close anyway. We should be within 30 feet when something dies, and in fact, it's likely that Halak will be the character that causes enemies to die. So the other characters are all doing area of effect damage. They're doing 2-target damage. They're controlling the battlefield. They're doing retaliation damage. Halak is the one who's going to walk up and finish an enemy off. So you walk up, you finish off enemies, you make a trinket. The next turn, you use that trinket, kill an enemy, make another trinket. And in this way, you should be able to use that Wails from the Grave almost every time. There is a problem with a free hand. If you're using two-hand crossbows, because this feature says you have to have a free hand, you technically don't have a free hand. You have to have a free hand to create it. You don't have to have a free hand to destroy it. If your GM just allows you to use it, I think it should just be allowed. You should have two-hand crossbows, and the trinkets can just, appear as a necklace around your neck or something like that. But if you're playing with a GM who's very strict and they make you have a free hand, you can, attack with a crossbow, put it away, have a free hand, attack with your other crossbow. You can switch back and forth with your hand crossbows so that you always have a free hand. It feels silly to me. I wouldn't want to have to play it that way, but be aware that it could be a technicality. And if your GM is super sticky about it, then just wield your heavy crossbow whenever you want to stock up on trinkets, and then you can use your hand crossbows for a couple turns and just use up the trinkets. But anyway, we can collect trinkets and use them with 5d6 sneak. It's another 3d6 extra damage. It's average 10.5 damage to another creature within 30 feet. So, 10 extra damage is nothing to joke at, right? We'll take it. Hand crossbows are a 30-foot range, so math works out nicely. If spike growth is in play, don't push it so far away that you can't collect the soul when it dies. Out of combat, we're still everything the party needs for a scout. Our persuasion and deception checks now. We had a 12 charisma, so that's a +1. We've still got +2 from our wisdom, so that's +3. We have expertise in those skills for another +8, and we have a minimum roll of a 10. So we're rolling something like 20 or 21 minimum as our persuasion and deception rolls. Pretty fantastic for a rogue. In combat, it's the same kind of thing. Maybe we put Longstrider on somebody, but basically we're just going to go first, upcast bless, move, use our cunning action to dash or hide or whatever makes sense. With hand crossbows, 2 attacks, bonus attack, and a move. With a heavy crossbow, 2 attacks, a move, and then a cunning action with rogue. We can use the poison from cunning strikes when the enemy might regenerate or heal. We could use trip if it makes sense to put the enemy prone. And again, we can go right up next to him in 5 feet and put things prone with that cunning action from the rogue abilities. Make it better for the rest of our group. Damage with heavy crossbows. So here we see that Halak's got kind of bluish colored, blue-green hair, and she's wearing an outfit to match. +2 to hit. Remember, with our fighting style from all the way back at level 2, we have a bless up and running. 97.5% chance to hit average armor class, even without advantage. So the heavy crossbow, we could target 2 different targets. Each one would take a D10 and a D4 +9. And then somewhere in there, we would get a 5d6 sneak attack and cleave 3d6 extra damage to another target. And that puts us at 61 damage. Again, it's okay, but for a ranged damage dealer, it really feels lackluster to only be doing 61 damage at level 14. With the 2 hand crossbows, we get a 3rd attack in there, and we can increase that overall to a 71 across 3 targets. Slightly less if it's only 2 targets, but yeah, so we're but good single target damage, good 2 target damage. Spike growth, again, we can hit 2 targets with a heavy crossbow and push them around. Each time we push them for 10 feet, we deal another 8d4 damage. So we could increase to 81 damage while we're wielding a heavy crossbow. With 2 attacks, and the enemy still needs to move out of spike growth and on their turn get where they need to be. So spikes can be pretty interesting, but even so, we're not going crazy with the damage on this character. Items, I think, of course, epic crossbows, a really nice heavy crossbow, some pretty cool hand crossbows, whatever you can pick up. Luckstone, I think, remains worth it for this character's entire build. Braces of Archery and Headband of Intellect are good, but if you pick up other things, that's fine too. Blood Fury Tattoo is a way to bring a ton of extra burst damage to this build if your GM allows it. Blood Fury Tattoo you can trigger up to 10 times per day. It does an additional 46 damage, and you heal for half of the damage dealt. So if you really need to put down a single target, you can do all 3 of your attacks against that target, trigger the Blood Fury Tattoo each time. You could use your haste gimmick, trigger your Blood Fury Tattoo on an attack, get a bonus attack, then on somebody else's turn, get another attack, trigger it again. It's a lot of damage, extra healing. You could also take a Sentinel feat. We took, remember the feat that we took at level 8 of Rogue. It was an okay feat, Piercer, but we could instead take Sentinel. We don't really want to be in hand-to-hand combat, but we can if we need to be. But if your GM is going to allow a Blood Fury Tattoo, you can talk it over with your GM, and if they say, yeah, thumbs up, that's fine, you can have it. I think it'd be really interesting on this character to take Sentinel as your Rogue 8 feat, and then you can go into melee with a short sword and a hand crossbow, do your normal attack sequence with no disadvantage. If you hit, you can activate the Blood Fury Tattoo, reaction, melee attack, which will have sneak attack. So this says that if something hits you with an attack, Blood Fury Tattoo lets you make a retaliatory strike, and Sentinel says if the enemy hits somebody else, you can make a retaliatory strike. So basically, if you get the Blood Fury Tattoo, you go up into melee. If they hit you, you can get a reaction attack, triggering your sneak attack again without having to use a haste potion. So it's a way to get that sneak damage back in again. And if they attack somebody else, then you hit them with Sentinel. So you get your sneak attack damage off on other people's turns this way. It could be fun. Halak still thinks about how she looks. She may carry dyes or use some kind of magical glamours to alter her clothes. She may just shop a lot. The strong characters in the group, the Warlock and the Barbarian, may have to carry a lot of her outfits. We have to have all the things needed to best change this, to best match our changing skin and hair color every day. She's not afraid of the spirits, right? So by now she's realized that these spirits are maybe not nice, but they're helpful. They can help damage enemies or sometimes give interesting information to the group. So I think she's playful. She's probably, would summon one of these spirits and ask it a question, and she might ask it a completely stupid question, like summon a spirit and say, how do you think I look? Does this armor look really good with my hair color today? And just completely waste the question and waste the trinket. And the spirit would say, yeah, you look good, and then go away. So I think it could be fun for role-playing. Again, it's a fey character, kind of whimsical. If if you're hoarding 4 soul trinkets all the time and never using them for that extra summon the spirit feature, I think that's a missed opportunity for roleplay, right? If you ever have 4 soul trinkets, crush a couple of them up, ask them a question, and make room for more soul trinkets in the next combat. You could also play where Dreadful Strikes, that extra D4 of psychic damage that you use now, could be actually, talking to the spirit and trying to pull it out of a person. So there could be some role-playing opportunities there as well. Levels 15 through 20, there's an option to just finish out with Rogue, right? We like that. So we would take, at Rogue 10, we would get an extra ability score improvement. We could take Resilient Constitution there, and then our saves are completely secure, right? As long as we have a trinket, we're getting advantage on Constitution saves anyway. And this would give us proficiency in con saves and a ton of extra bonus. At Rogue 11, we get improved cunning strikes. It's okay. And we could use 2 different things per attack, so we could potentially trip and poison them both in the same action. Now that we have a bunch of extra sneak attack, that could be good. At level 12, I would take the ability score increase to increase con by 1, increase wisdom by 1. That would round out the wisdom to 16, and the constitution would be a 16 as well. So giving more hit points and such. Rogue 13 would give 7d6 sneak damage and Ghost Walk subclass ability. This is a kind of, we'll just read it. You phase partially into the realm of the dead, becoming like a ghost. As a bonus action, you assume a spectral form. While in this form, you have a fly speed of 10 feet. You can hover. Attack rolls have disadvantage against you. You can move through creatures and objects, but you take a d10 damage if you end your turn inside an object. If you're fighting a monster that's ridiculously powerful, you're in a dragon's lair, and this dragon is doing all kinds of nasty stuff, you could move 10 feet into the wall. Now, you'll take a d10 damage, but it doesn't say that you get kicked out of the object unless the ghost form ends while you're in that form. Yeah, so you don't get discharged from the object. So you can ghost 10 feet into the wall. Again, you have a fly speed, but it doesn't say that it takes away your walking speed. So I don't know if you only have a flying speed of 10 and no other way to walk. But to me, it just says you gain a flying speed. So let's assume the worst case that you can only fly 10 feet, right? On your turn, you move 5 feet out of the wall, you make your attacks, you move 5 feet back into the wall. When the dragon breathes fire, you're inside the wall, you can reasonably say, I'm not exposed to that effect. You take a d10 of damage every turn for being in the wall, but the amount of damage that you can avoid is surely going to justify taking 5 damage a turn. There's some pretty ridiculous stuff that you could do with that. And of course, you could just, you could fight the Tarrasque, right? It doesn't have any ranged attacks, so you just fly up, and you stay in that form for 10 minutes. So that's 60 rounds that you would have to do what you need to do. To use the feature again, you have to destroy a soul trinket to reactivate it. You could have up to 4 soul trinkets at a time. So if you did decide to fight the Tarrasque, you could use it 5 times in a row and stay in the air for 300 combat rounds. Probably long enough for you to successfully defeat the Tarrasque. Okay, Rogue 14 gives Devious Strikes more options with Daze, Obscure, and Knockout. Rogue 15 would get 8d6 Sneak Attack and Slippery Mind. This is the reason we want to stay with Rogue all the way up. Slippery Mind then gives us proficiency in Wisdom and Charisma saving throws. So now we'll have Strength and Dexterity from the original Ranger Ranger class that we took at level 1. We'll have Con save because we already took that. Charisma and Wisdom. Will only be missing the Intelligence saving throw on this character. So again, if you're playing a level 21 shot, this character is pretty good now. So at level 20, we're Ranger 5, Rogue 15. We've got tons of support. We're blessing the party. We've got lots of movement. We've got cunning action, extra attack from Ranger, 8d6 of sneak attack damage, 4d6 cleave damage, 1d4 extra to each target that we hit. Vex advantage chaining with hand crossbows where we're constantly getting advantage on our next attack. And then cutting action to do whatever we want, right? Out of combat skills, we've got reliable talent for stealth, investigation, perception, persuasion, and deception. Halak goes where Halak pleases, and Halak talks her way out of it if she gets caught. No problem. We also have an option that we could go with Ranger in a way where we take Ranger 5 and Rogue 11. And then for 17, 18, and 19, we go back to Ranger. And then at 19, we take Ranger 8. And at 20, we take Rogue 12. And that would get us 2 epic boons. And we could take the Irresistible Offense and the epic boon of Combat Prowess and just put us over the top on damage and cap your dexterity at 22. That's a more damaging way to do the build. But honestly, for a level 21 shot, having proficiency in 5 out of 6 saving throws, to me, trumps having a little bit more damage. Let's check in for level 20 damage and see how that looks. For 2 targets, we would have 97.5% chance to hit average AC at this level. That plus 2 from the fighting style does a lot. We would get 2 hits at a D10 plus a D4 plus 10. 8d6 of sneak damage, and assuming that we could get cleave in there on a second target, it would be 75 damage in a round. Hand crossbows similarly would give you 3 hits, and if we could do that against 3 different targets, it would be 87. It's fully sustainable damage, so we don't even get to 100 damage a round, but we can do that from any range while being the party's bless character. So it's okay. I think if we wanted to build for damage, the build would look much different. But I think basically she becomes the party's cleric, more or less, the skill person out of combat, a cleric in combat, and also 87 damage around. It's not bad. I think it's a fun character. You could play this character in just about any table. So you go up to a table and there's already 4 people playing, and you say, "Hey guys, what do you need for a 5th?" And they say, "Well, we don't really have a cleric, or maybe they don't know the value of bless." And you say, "Do you have a character in here that casts bless every combat?" And they say, "Nope, we don't have a bless every combat." So you say, "Okay, I have a character that can bring the bless and also do good damage, be the party scout." So you could fill in for a rogue role, a ranger role, a cleric role in terms of blessing and giving out good berries to help heal. Really a ton of flexibility. There's no part of the game that will ever be played where this character can't participate fully. If it's a social setting, this is the face of the party now. If it's a hide, sneak, scout, this is your character. If you're finding traps, disabling, this is your character. If you're in combat and you just want to stay at range and do lots of damage, this is your character. If you want to get up close and Blood Fury tattoos are allowed, you can increase your damage by a lot, get into close combat, do all your attacks, and then you're guaranteed to get an off-turn reaction attack, whether the monster hits you or somebody else. So it's a fun build. I think pretty interesting for just about any group you'd want to play it in. Here we see how Halak looks again at high levels. Here she's summoned one of these spirits and she's just joking around with it, brings it out, says something snarky and sarcastic to it, asks it a dumb question, and lets it move on. So if you like this build, if you like this character, please hit that like button. Subscribe to see more of these kinds of builds in the future. And of course, leave me any comments you have about Halak, the spiritual slayer. And I am a part of a live stream group on Monday nights. The Mythlanders stream at 7 o'clock Central Time in the US. Look us up, DM Feanor on Twitch. The link is in the description of the video down below. You can also go on YouTube. The link for that's in the description down below. And you can see my character XARM and our group as we play through the Goblin Stone setting. If you want to catch up on that from the very first session we ever did, those are all saved on YouTube. Hope to see you over there. Stop in, say hello, and I'll see you in the next video.